The facelifted Kia Seltos has landed in Australia bearing a new look, updated interior and drivetrain and fresh technology. It does so while imposing a moderate premium across the board. So question is, how does the updated Seltos fare in the competitive small SUV set? Let's find out. The Seltos is Kia's answer to the Hyundai Kona, Mazda CX-30, Toyota CHR and a host of other small SUVs. For 2022, the 4-model Seltos lineup starts $2,200 dearer than before at $29,500 plus on-road costs for the entry S grade. But in doing so, it adopts much more safety and equipment as standard. The flagship GT-Line driven here adopts Kia's superior 1.6-litre engine and all-wheel drive, topping the lineup at $44,900 before on-road costs. All models from the mid-trim Sport and up are fitted with Kia Connect services, allowing owners to control a range of vehicle functions from a smartphone app. Now, one of the big talking points with the Seltos for variants Sports Plus and above is the updated 1.6-litre turbo petrol engine. Outputs have now grown to 146 kilowatts and 265 newton meters, while drive is shuffled to all 4 wheels in this model via a new 8-speed torque converter automatic. Now, theoretically, that should be smoother at lower speeds than the predecessor 7-speed dual clutch unit. Fuel use is rated at 7.4 litres per 100 Ks for the 1.6-litre powertrain using regular unleaded petrol. So it might technically be a small SUV, but the Kia Seltos is really well packaged and equipped inside. There's generous space across the first and second row. The second row in particular has plenty of leg room, headroom, toe room, and shoulder room suitable for a couple of adults, all little ones alike. And up front, there's a great array of cupboards, storage, and a great placement of all the key controls as well. I love that Kia in this model has typical buttons, dials and switchgear. It is just easy to use. I know that touchscreen buttons and touchscreens are all the rage at the moment, but I'd give me a hardwired buttons or switchgear any day of the week. Digital instrument cluster, head-up display, it has everything and most of it works pretty well. I'm not a massive fan of the glass flip-up head-up display, but in any case, it is handy to be able to have that in your line of sight. Everything here is well placed, the seats are comfortable, and there's great vision to the front and the rear. The top shelf Seltos covers all our infotainment checklists as standard, though oddly, higher spec variants require a wired connection for Apple CarPlay, whereas lesser models don't. Safety is likewise well sorted, with every box ticked, though there is a pretty hefty caveat with the way some of those aids intervene. More on that shortly. The rear seat of the Seltos is probably the biggest surprise, with excellent proportions, power outlets and rear air vents. The boot area brings 433 litres worth of space, a flat floor and commendably a full-size spare wheel underneath and split folding seats. Okay, so there is a little bit to get your head around with this new facelift, including some underbody changes. So really interested to see how that new 8-speed torque converter automatic translates to daily driving. The one thing I will say before all of that is the new safety systems. You'll probably hear the car chiming in the background. Every single time I've gotten to the Seltos, I've had to go through the menus and turn off the speed sign recognition function because it is so distracting. It really takes away from the driving experience as well. Basically, every time you change speed zones, and that includes even a 40 kilometre an hour school zone, even when it's not active in New South Wales, you're getting a chime come up. And then every time you go over that posted speed limit by even 1 kilometre an hour, which is very easy to do when speed limits are changing all the time, it will constantly chime at you as well. And the only way to really get rid of it is to turn it off. There's no sort of parameters to play with. It's just on all the time, and I've found it really, really distracting. The other thing, and it's a common trait in Kia models, in Hyundai models as well, is the lane assist function. I just find it a little overbearing, so I simply hold down the function on the steering wheel and turn it off as well. But down to business, how does the new Kia Seltos drive? The new transmission has yielded a little bit more smoothness from the get-go. So when you apply the throttle now, there's not that same pause or hesitation that beset the predecessor with its 7-speed dual clutch automatic. I have to say the drivetrain though, it's lacking a little bit with its noise and vibration levels. I just find it almost feels like a Kia or a Hyundai 8 or 10 years ago, because it can become quite thrashy. It doesn't have a lot of low down torque. 265 Newton meters isn't an awful lot when you consider the weight of this car. And it means that the Seltos doesn't quite take the big step forward that I was maybe anticipating. This is only a midlife facelift, but having recently got out of other Kias like the Sportage SUV, like the Sorento SUV, they're really polished, really refined SUVs, especially for the price. For a $50,000 SUV, this flagship Seltos GT-Line doesn't quite match my expectations. It does everything well. It's definitely an inoffensive and competent little drivetrain combination, but certainly not living up to the refinement that I've come to expect, having spent time in other Kia models recently. But anyway, down to the ride and handling mix. This car sort of finds itself between Stonic and Sportage. So you would expect with a slightly bigger footprint than Stonic, it's going to have maybe a little bit better road holding, a little bit better bump compliance. And it does, but yeah, it's a long way from the larger Sportage in terms of its overall refinement. Niggly bumps tend to reflect through the cabin accordingly, and then larger hits in particular, there's quite a bit of thudding going through the cabin. It's a little bit unsettled when you come over mixed sections of bitumen. But the steering's light at low speed, it's nippy, there's adequate vision front and rear, and the placement of the controls, where you sit in the cabin and everything else, you've got ease of reach to everything. It's quite a comfortable car to get in and get used to. But beyond that, as I said, it's competent, but it's not really leading the segment in any way. And for a $50,000 car, with on-road costs and everything considered, I maybe expected just a little bit more. In terms of efficiency, the updated 1.6 litre drivetrain averages about 8.8 litres per 100 Ks in a mix of conditions, about 10% higher than the claim and off the pace of some of its European rivals. The ownership story here is sound, with a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty as standard. Servicing over 5 years will set buyers back about $2,000. With regular maintenance set at 10,000 kilometre intervals, slightly shorter than industry standard. Summing up, we'd say the Kia Seltos is a competent and well-rounded SUV. However, we possibly expected a bit more from it given the price rises and the new equipment. And the execution of some of those safety aids will come as a bit of a deal breaker for some buyers. In some respects, you could argue Kia is the victim of its own success because the Seltos doesn't quite reach the lofty heights of the car maker's better-known SUVs.